Hello, James Farr here from Worker Info Exchange. A message for Uber drivers to let you know about new legal action that we've launched against Uber over the use of algorithms in setting fares and pay, dynamic pay systems, and more commonly known as upfront pricing. We're fighting for compensation for drivers who have suffered some serious losses over the last 5 years that technology has been around, but also for an injunction to get it banned or removed, because we say that the technology and its use, the way Uber's using it, is unlawful. So I'm going to make a series of videos, hopefully over the coming days and weeks, to explain more about the background to all of this. But I just wanted to make a brief video now to introduce it and to make you aware of the claim and to ask you to join it. Um, a little bit about the action. We've sent pre-action letters to Uber, making some specific demands. So it's possible, if Uber agreed to those demands, including the offering of compensation to you, that the unpleasantness of litigation can be avoided. But I'm not convinced Uber will accede to our immediate demands without being forced to do so by the courts. That's usually been my experience with Uber over the last 10 years or so fighting them. So the action is in the Netherlands, because that's where the wrong is the harms are happening, because that's where Uber controls the data and deploys the algorithms that have become so harmful. And there are three major claims associated with this overall claim. The first one is the use of automated decisions um, that we say conducts algorithmic discrimination in the way that it sets these fares. Um, so we've done some work with Oxford University, you might have seen over last summer, where and thanks you to so many drivers who participated in that study by helping us by contributing their personal data with us at Work Info Exchange to allow that research to happen. But we found that 87% of drivers had lost money, had lost a real income since the introduction of dynamic pay, and that the losses were uneven. So 10% of drivers lost 10% pay, 20%, 20%, and beyond that, 30% more for another 30%, and then 13% had actually earned more money. So you can see that there's a wide spectrum of loss and some small gains for some people, which shows that you would expect, if pay had dropped overall, that it would be felt equally for everybody. But we can see that that wasn't the case, that some people made more money, some people lost a lot of money, some people lost some money. And that shows that there's personalisation and discrimination amongst drivers underway at Uber. Um, as a result of that research, we could see that the losses were severe, that Uber had managed to raise prices by as much as 32%, and drivers were losing as much as 16% of their pay. And so that's a pretty wide gap. And Uber's really performed financially very well since the introduction of this technology. Their overall margin has increased from 20% to 30%, which is just massive in a transport sector, to take those kinds of margins out of a business that is, it's tough. All transport is tough. It's labor intensive, it's capital intensive, it's regulatory, it's highly regulated, and it's economically sensitive. It's a very tough business within which to make money, but Uber manages to descend from the cloud and take 30% out for itself. That's pretty tough, and you're left then to pay the costs, take the risk, and try to make a living yourself as well at a time of declining fares and the cost of living crisis. It has to be addressed. So we say the use of this automated system is unlawful under Article 22 of the GDPR as a general prohibition on automated decisions that have these types of detrimental effects on you, and we say Uber has no right to do that. The second part of the claim is that we say that Uber is using your data to train this algorithm to exploit you. You imagine adding insult to injury, using your data literally against you. And we say you didn't consent to that. Why would you? and consent is required for Uber to train an algorithm in that way, and we say that that never happened, and that's a breach. And thirdly, it's a quite a separate claim, but we know that between 2021 and 2023, Uber transferred data from Europe to the mothership in California, but did so outside of the required protections that are required by law in transferring that data from Europe to the United States. There's a bilateral treaty that provides for certain protections, and particularly for the transfer of personal data, that your rights are protected somewhat if your personal data is transit or shipped to America. This is really important. For example, if the intelligence services wanted to root around in all of our data and so on, that we would have certain, that our human rights, that our civil rights are protected from that particular scenario. And there are specific protocols set up within the regime that Uber was supposed to follow. But Uber didn't follow that. And so our data and our rights, in a way, were violated. And that's not a trivial matter when we see the state of the world today. I don't need to say more than that at this stage. So it's not a trivial matter. Now, the regulator in the Netherlands already fined Uber very heavily for this breach, such that it was so serious. It fined Uber something like 250 million euros, €250 million euros, which is great for the regulator to collect that amount of money from Uber. But you got no compensation, and you are the victims in this. So we say drivers are entitled to compensation for that breach as well. So there you are. There's the three of them. The use of automated decisions to set your pay, personalize your pay in the way that Uber is doing so, is unlawful. We say you've been harmed by that in terms of the money you've lost through this algorithmic exploitation, the suffering that you have, the anxiety, the stress that you have suffered as a result of that, does need to be compensated as well. So your material losses, as well as the emotional strain that this has had on you, and I know it has, been quite a strain for people, and a worry for people to go to work not knowing when they go to work if they're going to get work, and if they get that work, how much they'll be paid for it. And if I work all week, how much will I be able to take home this week versus last week? This is a very tough way to live, and it's unnecessary. And it's just pure algorithmic exploitation, and it's unlawful. And you're entitled to compensation for that. And so for your material damages, for your pain and suffering, and also an injunction to get it stopped. Those are the things we're asking for. Second order is that your data was used against you to train this algorithm that's become so harmful. And thirdly, there was a transfer of personal data of drivers between 2021 and 2023, which was done in such a way that your rights weren't protected, and according to the rules that have been agreed between the European Union and the United States for that type of transfer of data. And for that, you should be compensated as well. So those are the three major claims. We're bringing it in the Netherlands under the collective redress regime. This is a specific regime that is really designed for people like us, so that we can come together as one and take a collective action against big platform companies. Very difficult to bring this type of action by yourself and succeed. But we think we have a good shot now at doing that. But it is important that you sign up and join this claim, so we can get going and convince the court that this is an important case that should be heard in the Netherlands, and that compensation should be offered or ordered for you. So please do sign up. It's a very easy form on our website. You can find it on our website. There's a dedicated website set up called dynamicpay.org, and you can find it also on our home website, workinfoexchange.org and workinfoexchange.nl. I think there's probably enough for now. As in these cases, there's nothing to pay upfront for this. If we lose, you don't have to pay anything. If we win, there is a commission payment of 25% for non-union members, 22.5% for union members, and that's payable to a funder. We have a funder who's underwriting the costs of these cases, which is quite substantial. But that only becomes payable in the event that we're successful. The other thing to say is that it's not the type of claim arrangement that you might have seen in the UK previously with some of the employment claims, in the sense that as a foundation under the Dutch law that's set up to do this type of collective redress action, we as a foundation enjoy much greater rights. So it will be us that will decide how to take this case with Uber, how far to proceed. If Uber wants to negotiate a settlement, it will be us that will decide that. It won't be the lawyers or even the funder. It will be us and our board who will be responsible for taking that decision, and we will do that with your interests only to be considered. And we've got a good board, as you will see on our website. We've got Professor Veena Dubal, who's been a really leading academic on the issue of algorithmic unfairness and algorithmic pay. We're really leading light in the labour movement on this issue. Mark Urata from formerly from the International Transport Federation, has been working on this issue most of his career. Sway-Ling Harris, who is a digital rights activist of some renown, and finally Amrit Segobind, who is national organizer for the FNV union in the Netherlands, representing Uber drivers there. So we've got a really solid board there to look over your interests and mine as well. So what do you need to do? Please do sign up at dynamicpay.org or go onto our website, follow the links there to find out some more information about the claim. But it is important, to take this action forward. I can't believe that it's been 10 years since my first involvement with legal action against Uber. And in many ways, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I wish that our Supreme Court case had been a silver bullet, but it wasn't. I can't promise you that this case will be a silver bullet either, but I can tell you that it's really important to fight, and it's really important to fight for the future of your career and your work, but more broadly than that, for our children and for future generations. There's no living with this type of algorithmic exploitation in the workplace, and we have to take it on. That's our duty to do that. And I'm thinking of Bob Crow, the old RMT, former General Secretary, who sadly passed away some years ago, who used to say that if you don't fight, you won't. That if you fight, you might not win, but if you don't fight, you definitely will not win. And that's the case here. If we don't take them on, then what's the future for us? And frankly, a lot of the profit that Uber's taking is going directly back into building further algorithms for autonomous vehicles and so on. So it is important. It is important that we tackle this type of abuse where and when we can. And in this case, we've tried to make this legal action as accessible for as many people as possible. so that we can all sign up together, take this company on, and hopefully get some justice before the Dutch courts. The final thing to say about the Dutch courts is that we've got an excellent legal team. We've been working with the lawyers for quite some years. We've been successful in taking on Uber in previously over unfair deactivations, over faulty facial recognition systems. You might remember were rolled out in 2021 for unfair deactivations related to fraudulent activity. I mean, we had a huge award. You can see it on our website of three drivers shared something over €800,000 in awards from the Dutch courts. And in a way, these, what we're doing on pay is not that much different. In those cases, those were automated decisions to terminate somebody's contract. Those were automated decisions that were faulty on facial recognition. And these are automated decisions that are made around pay. It's the same principle. And fortunately for us, is also the same hard-charging legal team operating before the same courts where we've been successful before. So there's a lot more to talk about on this topic. There is a discount for union members. I hope you'll consider joining a union, because we talked about silver bullets a second ago. That is the only silver bullet I know in the end, is to join a union. So this is a claim for collective redress, for collective action, for collective redress, collective compensation, for collective justice for all of us. But in offering that discount and working with union partners, we want to send a message that it's also important to build collective power, because in the end, if we build power to counterbalance the power of these platforms, that's how we win. So I really would urge you to join a union, get active in that union, and get active within your workplace, and talk to other workers and your customers about what's happening and what needs to be done about it. But also join this legal action, and we'll fight like hell for you. I can't tell you what's going to happen, how this is going to play out, but I can tell you that we'll fight hard to make this a great success. So please do join up. Like I say, it's free to join up front. It's pretty easy form to fill in, and I think a lot of drivers have signed up already, but I would say just keep it coming, because it's really important that we build this collective power together to get this collective action off the ground. We've already sent the pre-action letter to Uber and waiting their response to it, but we're ready to fight. We're ready to fight this all the way, and we invite you to join us to do the same thing with us. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can always reach me at my name is right here, James Farrar. So you would write James Farrar at workerinfoexchange.org. That's one word, workerinfoexchange.org. Or you can also write to me at office@workerinfoexchange.org. And with that, I'll leave it here, and I look forward to seeing you, many of you out and about, or to see you online here again soon to discuss the claim further. In the meantime, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. But if all your questions are answered, please do sign up and join the claim. Again, you can find us at dynamicpay.org, or at workerinfoexchange.org, or workerinfoexchange.nl. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.